Dragon Ballers, if you're looking to buy Dragon Ball Super or One Piece sealed product, make sure to get 5% off using my link to Mystic TCG down in the description. You can also sell cards to them using their Facebook link, which is also down in the description. Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another meta breakdown video. I am finally back from what has been the longest amount of time I've ever spent traveling for card games. 2 weeks ago, I was just at the Dallas Treasure Cup for One Piece, where I secured my Chopper prize card there. That was my goal. And then I was at the Worlds LCQ and Dragon Ball Super World Championship this past weekend. I was in attendance at the Dragon Ball Super Battle Hour, which is actually a super fun event. I posted some shorts if you want to check them out. They're down on the shorts tab of this channel. But yeah, we're gonna get right into the meta for these two recent Dragon Ball events. But before that, drop a comment down below. Let me know, 1, did you miss me? And 2, let me know what you're looking forward to on the set 20 ban list, because that set is right around the corner. And normally by now we have the contents of the ban list leading up into the new set, but we don't have that yet. I'm assuming Bandai just wanted to wait to see how Worlds and that would wrap up. So yeah, let me know in the comments below what you are looking forward to getting banned, because your perspective on that might have changed if you know what's going on in this meta for the World Championship and World LCQ. But anyways, that being said, if you guys are new, make sure to subscribe. Let's jump right on in, starting off with the World Championship Last Chance Qualifier. So this was a tournament, first of its kind from what I've ever seen, where players were allowed to play. And it was essentially a winner-take-all tournament, which was definitely a major feel bad for anyone who was going with the goal of topping the event. Basically, only first and then second place was added later because one of the World Championship contenders wasn't able to attend. So first and second place of this tournament were able to move on and play in the World Championship the next day. So what do we have for the top 8 here? Well, firstly is 150 players out of the 256 player cap. About 100 players didn't show up, which is very interesting. I mean, players didn't really have a reason not to sign up because it was free entry. So it showed as a capped tournament, but that's kind of unfortunate because I'm sure a lot of people that wanted to come didn't because they were waitlisted and weren't sure if they'd be able to play. So that's a slight downside, but we did have 8 rounds best of 1 pre-side with a top 8 best of 3 single elimination played out in the same day. So there were of course time constraints placed on this tournament because they had to finish the LCQ on Saturday and play out Worlds on Sunday. So those are kind of the time situation we're dealing with here. Before the top 8, we have 5 Crimson, which is, you know, super expected. I mean, anyone you asked probably would have expected at least 50% or more of top cut to be Crimson. It is just the best deck, but it's not without counters, and we'll see that as we go into the World Championship meta. But anyways, we have 1 Golden Frieza. Huge shout out to my teammate Marcus, myself, and my teammate Russell all played Golden Frieza for this event. He managed to convert into the top 8. We had such an unfortunate time, man. We had so many team kills. Quick story. For the Treasure Cup and for the Worlds LCQ, I had to play against my teammate Jordan Markle round 1. Both events, back-to-back weekends. Someone tell me the astronomical odds of that. It was so crazy. But even with all those team kills, 4 out of the top 8 here for the World Last Championship Qualifier were players from Team Carlswell, which I'm just so beyond proud. So shout out to every single one of you guys on the team, man. Yeah, it's just the best team you could possibly hope to be on. But yeah, so we have 5 Crimson, again, super expected. The 1 Golden Frieza, shout out to Marcus. His profile is here on the channel from yesterday. Make sure to go check that out. He was actually locked into playing this deck for the World Championship, which we did not know. We did not know the players who won or got second place at this LCQ would be locked into the same deck going into the next day. So he played the same list for the LCQ as he played for the actual World Championship. We do have 1 Gamma, which for American events is very on the nose, makes a lot of sense. And then 1 Supreme Kai of Time. Shout out to Sawyer for topping here. His deck profile will be up on the channel tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. But now there's one more thing I want to talk about this LCQ. So you'll notice there is absolutely 0 red in this top cut. There's also 0 green, but I mean, that's a bit more expected. While I think people expected Cooler to do well coming off of last format, green is still in a slightly weaker position than the rest of the colors. But we do have no red and a combination of blue, yellow, and black. Obviously, very much so blue. What's interesting about this is, for all the American Zenkai Cups leading up to this tournament, we saw an overabundance of blue, namely Crimson, and then a good amount of Gamma and a good amount of Beerus Ramp. And we saw nearly no red in any of the American Zenkai Cups leading into this tournament. We saw some Spring Kai of Time, we saw some yellow, not as much green, and definitely not nearly enough red. But in the European events, we saw SS4 Gogeta winning Zenkai Cups. We saw Sin Shenron topping, where it had topped 0 events in the American Zenkai Cup. So we have these vastly different formats. What's also very interesting is that if you remember from the videos I did, Golden Frieza did very, very well in Europe too. So it seemed like these two different regions, Europe and the US, were just tackling the format in various different ways, which was so interesting. The red especially was so interesting because I still think Crimson hard counters red. It just got way too much combo power for red to push through, but the red decks do counter a lot of Crimson's weaknesses, which we will see as we go and talk about the actual World Championship top 8 decks. But yeah, that's what I noticed about this, and that's what our team was thinking about going into this tournament. In America, we've seen primarily blue. And yes, players from all over the world were allowed to come and play at the World Championship LCQ. But of course, we're in America. The vast majority of players are going to be American, and you have your handful of people that fly in, which is awesome. But how much off meta as far as like the US goes are you really expecting to see? That was a big reason why we picked Golden. It's yellow, does very, very well into Crimson. The red matchup can be a little bit difficult, but yeah, just some of our thoughts going into this tournament. Let's now take a look at the actual World Championship top 8, which consisted of 1 yellow Trunks Vegeta, which actually went on to win the event, 1 Gamma, which was your second place runner-up, 1 Beerus Reboot taking 4th, and then 4 Crimson following that up. A lot of you guys might see this data and say, well, first of all, Crimson is not that overwhelming, which in a sense is somewhat true, but also that, you know, Trunks Vegeta is the new boogeyman of the format. I have to explain something about this tournament that a lot of people might not understand. This was an 8-player tournament. This is not solely representative of the meta as a whole. More so, what I really think went on here was that these players pretty much said to themselves, okay, no one's going to take the red Sin Shenron, no one's going to take the red SS4 Gogeta, and no one's going to take Spring Kai of Time. No one is going to take these premier aggro decks into this 8-player tournament where most likely everyone's playing Crimson. So that's probably what a lot of these players decided on, because these this Trunks Vegeta deck and Beerus decks specifically were very, very control oriented. I think aggro would have gave them a bit of a difficult time, and then Gamma just Gamma. That's just like the mid-range blue deck in and of itself. But yeah, everyone pretty much sat down and said, no one's taking aggro this event. Let's play some really strong control strategies that beat Crimson. And let me tell you, it worked out for these players. What I saw from the live stream games, these players were so prepared for Crimson. They just, you know, in a sense, wiped the floor with it. Like, not that it was super easy for these decks. There were definitely some very close games, but you could tell these decks were built to beat Crimson and well practiced by the pilots to beat Crimson. I could definitely tell that from watching the live stream games. But now let's go take a look at the Trunks Vegeta list, the Gamma list, and the Beerus Reboot list. All right, so let's start off looking at Philip Tarpini's first place Trunks Vegeta list. Now, I gotta say, if America couldn't pull it home, I'm pretty glad that Italy did. So here we go. We have our standard Trunks Vegeta stuff. We have, of course, the Evolve chain with the 1-drop Trunks Vegetas, as well as the 3-cost Trunks and Vegetas. Now notice we are not playing any of the new Zenkai Dash Pack cards in the main deck. We are only playing the 1Z leader, which pairs nicely with our 8-cost Vegeta and Trunks. So we're not using the Trunks Vegeta 1-drop. We're not using the Vegito 3-drop. And that makes a lot of sense. I mean, the one thing about Vegito in this deck that is nice, it gives you a battle card that actually applies a decent amount of pressure, whereas I normally feel like Trunks Vegeta is just way too passive in the current format to actually you know, kill through the mid-range and control decks. But this list, man, this list took Greedy to like the next level, not in a bad sense, but in the sense that, like, yes, I am not going to play against any aggro. I am going to have my time to set up, and I'm going to drop Frieza, Emperor of Universe 7. This card was literally casted for 7 in this deck, and without Godsling Technique Trunks in the format, this card put such a hard check on Crimson. So what this card does, if you don't remember, permanents. If your leader is yellow, your opponent's counter skills and non-keyword auto and activate skills cannot be activated unless they place 1 card from their life in their drop area. So the main way that Crimson could out this card was through Son Gohan Power Reclaim. So for those effects, you're paying 1 life, you're critting 1 life to just use activate battle of playing the card, and then you're critting another life to use the auto to bottom deck this card. So just to answer this card, you're going to be critting 2 life. That's on top of negating this card's attack or using any counters or combos that you need to get out of this thing's 30k triple strike. So on its own, on play, this thing gives Crimson a really, really hard time. This was such a smart tech choice for Philip, so huge shout out on that part. This is a really cool tech that I could not believe beforehand, before seeing the games. I couldn't believe that he would just hard cast this for 7, but man, oh man, was this card effective. It was absolutely insane. So that's the coolest part about this list for sure. We do have the side deck, which seems a lot more standard. We have the one of Planetary Mecha Frieza, which combos very, very nicely with Erotic Riposte, among other options. Now let's take a look at the second place Gamma list. A very streamlined 50 cards. Going through here, a lot of the typical stuff. Only 3 inorganic horror is very interesting, but I suppose we're making room for 4 copies of Android 17 Defending Friends, one of the new blue cards that was legal for this tournament, and we saw Crimson adopting it as well. This card is so insane. It's got the same activation requirements as Goku Black Mortals Begone. So the only downside in Crimson is that this card is not a Saiyan as where Goku Black is, but if you can make the room for it in Crimson in any blue deck, to be honest, it's going to be very, very powerful. In Gamma, it has the upside of being an android, so you can use it during your opponent's turn. It's also got a lot of searchability, and through your 17-18 teaming up unison, you make Z energy fairly easily, so that's a no-brainer there. We do have the Gohan Beast SCR. We saw different Gamma lists at Nationals, switching between Baby Hachiyak and Gohan Beast. Gohan Beast definitely the more aggressive variant of SCR to go with, because again, if you're anticipating on no aggro being played in top 8, you're going to go with an SCR that actually helps push through your opponent's board and combo power. That makes a ton of sense. And then the really interesting tech choice here is not even a scratch. Simple negate, but also pay 1, orbit from your drop, and draw a card. In the past, we've seen many Gamma lists using Saiyan Instincts, and this player just wants to have the 1 cost negate as well as the ability to draw during the next turn. And then we go down to the sideboard here. We have Krillin the Cunning preparing for that Divinity SCR. We have Android 21 Bad Omen, maybe doing that last bit of burn damage. And we have one more copy of Not Even a Scratch for a bit more of draw power, maybe if we go up against like a hand control deck. But to be honest, it was probably just more for the defensive purposes, and the added draw was more so just a benefit. And then finally, let's take a look at Wang Po's 4th placed Beerus ramp list. This is another clean 50 card list. We have a slew of different silver bullets. We of course have Borgos, Bardock's crewmate, who punishes dimension magic. We also have Burnished Bonds Borgos, who punishes offensive untapping via the Crimson Leader. Now, I saw people playing this throughout the day at Swiss at the LCQ. I personally don't think this card is actually that effective against Crimson. That's just me telling you this for your guys' preparedness against Crimson. They have very easy outs to this. They, of course, can just combo their Gohan rare, pay 1, get rid of it. In which case, though, if it's like during their turn, they can just you can just combo the Borgos and get Z energy anyway. That's not too big of a deal. But they also have Cell out of the Z deck, which takes care of this card pretty effectively. So I don't think it's that great for Crimson, but it is pretty annoying for Golden Frieza, I do have to say. Then we have our Beerus Destroys, our Boo Unisons, and our few Floodgates, Baby's Minion. We do, of course, have the 4 copies of Defending Friends. And then our top end. So we have 1 Kale Rampaging Demon. We have 1 12-drop Whis, of course. And we have this 0 copies of Turning the Tide. Man, that is super interesting to see 0 copies of Turning the Tide. I really didn't know that before I watched Wang Po's games. And yeah, that is very, very interesting to have 0 copies Turning the Tide. Obviously, a huge combo you can do on 12 energy is Kale plus Turning the Tide. Get rid of your opponent's entire board as well as their entire hand. You can also do shenanigans where you play like Kale, then you play Divinity, and then you play Tide if you happen to draw it. But man, that's such a super interesting choice. Wang, if you're watching this, I would be super interested in knowing why you didn't play Turning the Tide. I'm sure you have a great explanation. But yeah, definitely was not expecting that going into this list. And we actually have a Z deck card in the sideboard, and only a 14 card sideboard. Looks like he felt he only needed 14 cards in his deck besides 15. But anyways, guys, those are the deck lists for you. Again, they will be down in the description. Super awesome event. Battle Hour was actually a spectacle to behold. So if you guys want to try to make it next year, definitely advise getting there if you can. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next video.